Like when I was with the instructor, my hands were like shaking because when we got back to the test yard and he was like, I was like, oh my god, I failed. Guys, welcome back to another video. So today I'm just gonna show you the fact that I've passed my driving. So I'm now legal to drive in the UK, which is awesome. So I'm just gonna do like a little story time of how I got my license and how come it took me so many attempts to get my license. So stay tuned for the video. So as you can see from the title, it took me at least 7 attempts on my theory and it's taken me 4 attempts on my practical. So you already know that's taken a lot of money to try and get these licenses. And the thing is, like, if you've not passed it on the first attempt or the second attempt or anything, it might be a sign like, look, maybe I ain't destined to drive, maybe I'm supposed to be chauffeured around. Everybody I've met, like my mom, everyone of those seems to have an issue with me, like driving me any place. So what's the point of me getting a license? But it's like, you know what? I'm getting old now. So I definitely need to get my license, which I don't really mind getting. So let's start from the beginning. So I got my Antigua license a few years ago, and the way in which I did that, I did my practical, so not practical, I did my theory so many times. And in Antigua, they claim to say that they follow the UK standards of, well, the British standards of driving. So for example, we have roundabouts in Antigua, but it's not like proper roundabouts over here. People in Antigua don't really know how to use roundabouts like that. There's one major roundabout in town. There's another one in by the stadium. But I was like, people don't really know how to use a roundabout. So when I did my theory, there was like asking about blind people walking on the road and all these things. So I thought that was maybe common sense. Clearly it wasn't common sense for me because I took so many attempts at it and I was like, I was keep on missing the pass mark. I think that maybe the last time that I did it, so it might have been like 5 or 6 times I went and wrote my theory. Whoever was marking the paper must say, you know, I'm tired to see this girl named Cross, yeah? So let me just pass she and make she stop spending she money. So then I passed my theory after a good amount of attempts. Then I signed up to do driving lessons. And in Antigua as well, I drove manual. So in manual, I can't remember how many lessons I took because that was a few years ago. And then I took my theory twice. So, no, why did I keep saying theory? I took my practical twice. So with the practical back in Antigua, they did a hill start. You had to do it wasn't a hill start. What was it? Yeah, it was a hill start. So it's like, if anybody know the old transport board used to be, and you used to have to drive down to go down into the yard to drive it, you know that like a steep hill to get back up, they'll normally tell you, stand up here, drive off. So then that's what we had to do. Did that, drove around town, and they'll tell you to go on different roads. And I don't know, people, well, you don't really know the roads in Antigua. You just know, okay, this is Jail Road, this is ARG Road, this is Shaw's Road, like, you know, High Street, you know, Long Street, and you know, Market Street. Them are the 3 main streets that you mostly know. And the other streets, them, you know them by association with some kind of shop that's on there. So then, everything else, I did all my maneuvers and so on, I did well. But I'm a roundabout. I didn't pass that. Another maneuver I had to do was to get in lane. I didn't do that, so then I failed. So then maybe like 2 weeks later, I went back and did my testing, and I got the same person as well to examine me. So I was like, too, because I know her because her daughter used to go to the same primary school as me. So apparently I was like a little troublesome person in school, which I don't really remember. So we're gonna leave it as that. So then when the woman was like doing the exam, so I was like, Miss, just test me again back on the stuff, the 2 things that I fail on, because the other stuff, you know, I can do them. So just retest me on these. And that's what she did. She just retested me back on the 2 things that I failed, which was the roundabout, which was the exit, and then the other one was to get back in lane. So I did that and I passed it, got my license, started driving my grandmother's Jeep, which was a Suzuki, I can't remember what it was, a Suzuki something. So I was driving that manual car. not car, manual Jeep, going where I wanted to go, feel as a grown woman. And then my grandma was like, look, you can't drive around the place so much. So I was like, you know what, this is too much. This is too much oppression. Let me come back to the UK. Came back to the UK years later. Still I didn't really need to drive because, as I said, everywhere I've been, it's like central or like someone's willing to drive me, so I don't really need to drive. So then now back in the UK, I've started driving, taking my tests. So back in 2020, no, it might have been 2019. Yeah, 2019, I took my test, I think, the first time, and I failed it. I failed it maybe by like a few marks or something. Like, they had the perception I passed it, but it's the actual test. I failed it by maybe 2 marks or something. So then I was like, this is a sign. I didn't pass it the first few times when I was in Antigua, so maybe it's going to be the same cycle back over here. And tests are not cheap. I think it was like £32 or something at the time when I was doing my theory test. That's how much it was. So then I was like, you know what, I just booked it in again, and I got a date. We went into lockdown, and then when lockdown eased up, they rescheduled me a date, and then I went and did that. I can't remember exactly when I passed it, but I know I had 2 years after that. So 2 years after the date that I passed would have also, it was December maybe 2020 or something, I did the theory. So then December 2022 would have been the year of it being expired, meaning I was supposed to pass my practical within that time. If not, I'd have to retake my test. So then I did pass my theory on the second attempt. I think I must have passed it bang on the pass mark. So yeah, I got that. Then I started doing lessons, did my lessons. So I couldn't get a date. I must have taken maybe like 6 months worth of lessons or something. Yeah, because while I was working, I was doing 2-hour blocks and maybe an hour block, but it was mostly 2-hour blocks. And it's again driving manual transmission or stick, whichever one you want to call it, stick, manual, whichever. So then doing 2-hour lessons, the person that I had, she was like so lovely. Like, I loved my driving instructor. We got along. She was Caribbean as well. So every day we had, like, not every day, but every time we had a lesson, we had conversation. What about your day? How's the other students? Like, we just vibed along. We had so much we didn't have stuff in common, but we had same thing, same interests. But yeah, it was like really good. I enjoyed her company. I learned to drive and everything. I did the first test. And that was just an epic fail because when I first did my test, the man took me on the Great Cambridge. Was I not driving on the wrong side of the road? So then I was driving on the wrong side of the road. And then I had 2 majors or something like that. So yeah, I was driving on the wrong side of the road. I think he said I wasn't reading the road signs or something like that. So I was like, okay, no problem. From the time that I could just feel the energy. From the time that I was like on the wrong side of the road, I already know. He was like, okay, go back to the test center. No other maneuvers. I haven't done a bay parking. I haven't done parallel parking. I haven't done driving on the right or parking on the right or something like that. I haven't done a move off. So I was like, you know what? I asked him, I feel right. And he was like, wait till we get back to the test center. I just drove back. I already knew that I failed. So I was like, you know what? The driving instructor, she was there. And then obviously he broke the news to the both of us, which I already knew that I failed. So then my driving instructor, I just gave her back a key and like, I didn't want to go back home. So then it was time for me to start looking for another test date. And to be fair, it's like so hard to find test dates here in the UK because of COVID and there's so much of a backlog. My driving instructor, she told me to use this site called Speedy Test or something like that. I used them and they didn't get me a test date. I got my own test date, which was 6 months after. 6 months after when I took my initial test, my first test. And I got that date, but I was like, oh, I want one that's closer up. Thank God Speedy Test didn't give me anything because like I was able to drive some more, learn to look out for street signs, learn to read the road as well. But then, yeah, I did my test the second time and I passed it. So I feel so good. When I did my test, I didn't do anything much, The most of what I done parking on the right. I did a reverse parking when I was inside the test center to park into the bay. And we did sat-nav driving, and then he was like, pull up on the left. And then when you're ready, move off. So I've done that twice. But the thing is that when he told me to do it the first time, I did it. But then he asked me to do it a second time. So I was like, the fact that he's asked me to do it a second time and my instructor never told me that I would have to do it more than once. I was like, maybe I didn't do something correctly. So I think what he was looking for was the indicator, which the second time I did the indicator. Because like, apparently even if you don't have anybody behind you, still put on the indicators. You don't want to fail for like minor nonsense. So did everything, passed it, got my certificate, and let me tell you, it feels so liberating that I have a license. I'm a part of the pink card crew. It's not even pink because the license has now changed as to how they look, but I'm a part of that crew now. I don't know if I'll actually drive, if I'll actually get a car, because where I live is so central. It doesn't make sense for me to buy a car, pay for road tax, pay for gas, petrol, whatever you guys want to call it over here. And then I'm only going to drive it on the weekends or in the evenings. By the time I'm finished working, I want to sleep. I don't want to go anywhere. And like, yeah, other people like to drive me, so why would I drive? But yeah, that's my little story time on how I passed my... It's not how I passed my test, but just to tell you that I've passed my test. And as I've passed, I want to celebrate a little. I want to buy myself like a little pass gift. Like normally when I do big accomplishments, I'll treat myself to a gift, which is what I'm going to do. So stay tuned for the next video and we'll see exactly what I've bought myself. But yeah, guys, no matter how many times that you've taken your test, there's stories of other people who have taken their test multiple, when I say multiple times, like over 5 times for both practical and theory. You will get it eventually one day. All you need is practice and patience. Now that it's COVID times, we're post-pandemic, I don't know how it's going to be in terms of getting tested, because if it's taken me 6 months to get my second test, I can't imagine people who are like keep on failing. I shouldn't laugh, but I don't know about people who keep on not passing the test and they have to be shelling out. I think how much was it? £62? £62 to book your theory. And the thing is, right, my instructor was telling me that how other instructors out there are like booking up tests and charging you an arm and a leg when you can go on the DVSLA, wherever the website name is, to go and get your test dates cheaper, and all you have to do is rent your instructor's car. But then other instructors are out there profiting some ridiculous amount of money to book test dates just like you can get quicker. But I'm like thinking, if I'm going to pay you, let's say £200 just to book my test date, that ain't including me paying to rent your car for the hour to do my test. What if I fail that test? Where that money coming from? That's too much money for me to do. Let me just sit down and wait and see if a test date comes up and I'll do it. And one thing, these test dates as well, it's like, now it's a test, the test times, it's so weird. It's not like it gives you on a specific time, like let's say 11:30 in the morning. My test was 11:31. I'm sure they have leave there 11:31. But like, yeah, when you do your test, they ask you to read the license plate number somewhere, and then they ask you show me question and a tell me question. My show me question was to blow the horn. My tell me question was the anti-lock braking system, the easiest one that was possible. And that was just, it comes up when the ABS warning light comes up on your screen, you know that you have a problem with your anti-lock braking system. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. From the time I got those 2 questions, I felt good. I did the rest of the test. We used a sat-nav. We drove around, did my 2 maneuvers. Yeah, those are only 2 maneuvers. I didn't do any parallel parking or anything. I assumed that when because you know the instructors maybe like lingering outside. So maybe they saw when I came in and I pull up into the bay. He said, okay, she can do reverse parking. She didn't come back out. She didn't need to do all these bits and pieces. I guess she just did it in one swipe. So it's okay, maybe I don't need to ask them questions. Just ask her other different maneuvers to do. Did that and I passed it. Thank you, Jesus. I passed it. But yes. I'd like to thank my teacher, which I really enjoyed. I do miss her because I passed my test, took my picture, had to give my license, my permit that I had for at least 10 years, my permit, and give it to them. And they said, oh, you're supposed to get it within 30 days or something like that, 14 to 30 days, working days. So like, let's say maybe like a month or something, I think he said, that it would take you to get your, like 3 weeks or something to get your license. So we'll see. And when I told my mom, right, my mom was like, finally. I was like, finally for what? I could always drive. I could drive in Antigua. I could drive over here, but you guys don't trust me with your cars because I don't have a UK license. Forgot to film an ending. So you guys know what to do. Like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, bye and happy drive-ins.